Han Solo is one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars. But maybe it's time we admit the uncomfortable truth. He's also one of the worst. The galaxy treats him like a legend, but when you strip away the charm, what you're left with is a selfish smuggler who never really grows. He's cool, he's funny, but he's also a loser in disguise. From the very beginning, Han cared about one thing: money. He didn't join the rebellion because he believed in freedom. He joined because he needed to pay off Jabba. And when things got hard, he bailed. Fans call him a hero, but his entire arc is built on running away until circumstances drag him back in. That's not sacrifice. That's luck. Even his big moments of growth don't hold up. Coming back to save Luke, flirting with Leia until she breaks down his walls, stumbling into leadership in Return of the Jedi. None of it feels earned. It feels like the story bending over backward to make him look important. Without Harrison Ford's charisma, nobody would care. And then there's the sequels, which ripped off the mask entirely. Han Solo, decades later, is right back where he started, smuggling junk and abandoning responsibility. His marriage is broken, his son is lost, and his death accomplishes nothing. That's not a legend. That's a man who wasted every opportunity to grow. The galaxy may love Han Solo, but the more you look at him, the more his legacy crumbles. He's remembered more for the ship he owned than for anything he actually achieved. Compared to Luke, Leia, or even Lando, Han's impact is shallow. He's the galaxy's biggest loser, hiding behind the swagger of a leather jacket. In this video, we're going to break down why Han Solo is overrated, how his character arc completely stalls, and why his legacy is more disappointment than heroism. When we meet him, he's not a freedom fighter or a noble hero. He's a smuggler who only cares about paying off Jabba the Hutt. His introduction isn't about loyalty or sacrifice. It's about trying to cut a deal while sitting in a cantina booth. From the very start, Han is selfish. The only reason he even helps Luke and Obi-Wan is for money. He doesn't care about the rebellion. He doesn't care about the Empire. He just wants enough credits to get out of debt. That's not a hero's motivation. That's desperation dressed up as swagger. And yet, because Harrison Ford played him with charm, fans treat it like a noble choice. If you replace Han with any other mercenary, the story doesn't change, and that should tell you something. Even during A New Hope, his so-called big moment of growth, coming back to help Luke blow up the Death Star, is really just the bare minimum. He leaves, abandons the fight, and then swoops in at the last second to grab some applause. That's not growth, that's convenience. Imagine if Luke had died before Han showed up. He would have been remembered as a coward who bailed on his friends. Instead, the timing makes him look like a hero, when in reality, he was late to the party. The same pattern continues in The Empire Strikes Back. Han is still dodging responsibility, still bickering with Leia, and still looking for the next excuse to avoid commitment. He spends most of the movie trying to run, whether it's from bounty hunters, the Empire, or even his feelings. Fans call it charm, but in reality, it's immaturity. Luke is training with Yoda to become a Jedi, Leia is leading the rebellion, and Han is still trying to figure out if he wants to stick around. That's not growth, that's stalling. Even his romance with Leia doesn't redeem him. Their banter is fun, sure, but it's built on him constantly dodging feelings until she literally admits she loves him, while he's frozen in carbonite. That's not development, that's luck. He doesn't earn the relationship. It just happens to him because the story demands it. Leia deserved someone who could match her strength, not a guy who spent most of his time running from problems he created himself. Return of the Jedi doesn't fix this either. Han spends most of the film playing a background role, getting rescued, making snarky comments, and awkwardly stumbling into leadership. His arc doesn't build to a satisfying conclusion, it just sort of coasts until the credits roll. He gets promoted into being a leader of the rebellion, but does anyone really buy that the same guy who spent 3 movies avoiding responsibility suddenly became reliable? It doesn't feel earned, it feels like fan service. The truth is, Han's arc in the original trilogy looks like growth on the surface, but falls apart when you examine it. He starts selfish, stays selfish, and ends selfish. The difference is that by Return of the Jedi, the rebellion won, and he gets credit for being in the right place at the right time. Strip away the charm, and you see the same guy he was in Mos Eisley, only now people pretend he's a hero. And here's the kicker. Han Solo works because of Harrison Ford, not because of the writing. Ford's charisma papers over the cracks in the character. Without him, Han is just a guy who abandons friends, dodges responsibility, and occasionally shows up when it benefits him. That's not the galaxy's coolest smuggler, that's the galaxy's biggest loser. So the first angle is simple. Han Solo's original trilogy arc is celebrated as heroic growth, but when you dig deeper, it's actually a story about a selfish man who never truly evolves. The second angle we need to cover is Han Solo in the sequel trilogy, because this is where all the excuses fans made about his growth finally collapse. By the time of The Force Awakens, decades after Return of the Jedi, you'd expect Han to be wiser, more stable, and more responsible. Instead, he's right back where he started, smuggling junk across the galaxy and running from his problems. The supposed hero of the rebellion is now just a washed-up version of his younger self. Let's be clear, this isn't character depth, this is regression. Han didn't evolve, he reset. It's like the writers didn't know what to do with him, so they defaulted to nostalgia. The Millennium Falcon, the smuggling, the sarcastic one-liners, it's all there but without meaning. It's a hollow echo of the past, showing us that Han never really changed. That makes his entire original arc feel pointless. And then there's his relationship with Leia. After 3 movies of build-up, they're separated, living apart, and grieving a broken family. Han once again ran from commitment. Instead of fighting for their marriage, or supporting Leia through the political chaos of the New Republic, he bolted. This wasn't a tragic twist, it was the same character flaw we saw from the beginning, only now it wrecked his family instead of just his friends. That's not tragedy, that's laziness. The sequels also show how much of a failure he was as a father. Ben Solo falls to the dark side, becomes Kylo Ren, and Han does nothing. He wasn't there to guide him, wasn't there to stop him, and wasn't there to keep the family together. Leia even says Han's absence made things worse. Once again, Han avoided responsibility until it was too late, and the galaxy paid the price. For all his talk about loyalty, when it mattered most, he disappeared. His death in The Force Awakens is often praised as noble, but let's look closer. Han walks onto a catwalk unarmed, confronts his son, and dies without accomplishing anything. He doesn't save the day, he doesn't change Kylo's path, he just dies. Compare that to Obi-Wan, sacrificing himself to inspire Luke, or Vader sacrificing himself to save his son. Han's death doesn't inspire, it just underlines how ineffective he was. It's the perfect end for a loser. Tragic, empty, and meaningless. Some fans argue this makes him more human, but that's not the point. Star Wars is about growth, about characters evolving through struggle. Luke grows from farm boy to Jedi. Anakin grows from slave to Sith Lord. Even side characters like Ahsoka evolve dramatically. Han doesn't. He starts selfish, ends selfish, and leaves behind nothing but wreckage. That's not humanity. That's stagnation. The real irony is that the sequels could have used Han as a bridge between generations. He could have been the wise smuggler who mentors Rey, or the veteran leader who inspires Finn, or even the father figure who redeems Ben. Instead, he's reduced to comic relief and nostalgia bait until he dies. For a character this beloved, it's one of the biggest wastes in the franchise. When you put it all together, Han Solo in the sequels isn't just a failure, he's proof that his character arc was always hollow. If he never grew, never changed, and ended up exactly where he started, then what was the point of his story in the first place? So the second angle is clear. The sequels didn't ruin Han Solo. They revealed what he always was, a man incapable of growth, destined to fail, and propped up only by fan nostalgia. The third angle we need to dig into is Han Solo's legacy. Because for all the love he gets, when you measure his actual impact on the galaxy, it doesn't hold up. He's not remembered as a great leader. He's not remembered as a symbol of sacrifice. He's remembered as a guy with a cool ship who hung out with people more important than him. Compared to Luke, Leia, Anakin, or even Obi-Wan, Han's legacy is shallow. Let's start with leadership. Han was promoted to general in Return of the Jedi, but did he ever lead with vision or strategy? No. Lando led the fleet at Endor, Leia continued to lead the rebellion, and Luke became the symbol of hope for the galaxy. Han's contributions were tactical at best, like sneaking into Endor or piloting the Falcon, but those don't make him a legendary figure. He was a sidekick, elevated to a title he didn't earn. Then there's his reputation. Fans talk about him as the ultimate scoundrel hero, but what does that really mean? He's a guy who abandoned fights, left his friends hanging, and stumbled into the right place at the right time. His myth is bigger than his reality, built on charm and style rather than substance. Without Harrison Ford, Han would have been forgotten as quickly as Greedo. Even his iconic ship, the Millennium Falcon, does more heavy lifting than he does. The Falcon is the one constant, the symbol of rebellion, the tool that carried heroes to victory. Han is just the guy who happened to own it. The ship has more legacy than the man, and that says everything about how little he actually contributed. Compare him to someone like Lando. Lando also started selfish, betraying his friends in Cloud City, but he actually grew. He redeemed himself, took risks, and led the fleet to victory. Lando's arc is sharper, clearer, and more satisfying than Han's, yet Han is the one plastered on merchandise and worshipped as the icon. That's the power of charisma, not storytelling. Han's legacy also suffers because of the sequels. Instead of cementing his place in history, his return just exposed how little he had grown. He didn't leave behind a family, a movement, or a lasting ideology. He left behind broken relationships and a deadbeat reputation. Fans may still love him, but in universe, what did he actually achieve? The reality is that Han is beloved more for how he makes people feel than for what he actually did. He's funny, sarcastic and cool, but none of that translates into lasting importance. When you take away the charm, you're left with a selfish man who coasted through history on the backs of better characters. And maybe that's the final irony. Han Solo is supposed to be the everyman, the relatable guy, in a galaxy of Jedi and Sith. But in being that, he also shows the limits of being ordinary. While others grew, sacrificed and left a mark, Han stayed the same. That makes him more loser than legend. So the third angle is simple. Han Solo's legacy is built on nostalgia, charm and myth. But when you break it down, he leaves behind disappointment more than heroism. And that's why he's the galaxy's biggest loser.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.